A beginning is a very delicate time. Note then that in 1965, a book by Frank Herbert was released to the world, a book which changed science fiction as we know it. From introducing sci-fi concepts we now take for granted like hyperspace, or folding space as the book calls it, to being one of the main inspirations behind Star Wars, namely the Jedi. It's hard to overstate just how important this book is. Oh, yes, I forgot. That book is called Dune. Our story begins in 1992 with a game simply called Dune. This was a movie tie-in to the David Lynch film which launched 8 years prior. Yes, the game literally launched 8 years after the movie. It's not even a case of a long development cycle. Virgin acquired the rights to this game and the developers had about a year to finish it. There's actually a really interesting story regarding this game's development, but if you want to know more about that, I already have a video solely dedicated to this game. Anyway, Dune is a supremely unique title. It's been almost 30 years since its launch, and I still haven't played anything else quite like it. This is a point-and-click adventure mixed with real-time grand strategy. You play as Paul Atreides, son of Duke Leto Atreides, and you've just arrived on Dune. Your job is to establish diplomatic relations with the native Fremen, get them to join you, and defeat your rival house, the Harkonnen. In the meantime, you'll be assigning troops to spice gathering, military campaigns, espionage, and even botanical endeavors. All of your units gain experience and level up as they perform their respective jobs, and the spice you collect can be used to buy new harvesting equipment, weapons, and pay off your weekly quota to the Emperor. Fail to perform the last one and it's game over, and you need to do all of this while handling the constant aggression from the Harkonnen. Dune is such an incredible game. For one thing, it looks beautiful, with great pixel art and a unique art style, and the soundtrack was so good that it even received a remastered album release the same year, something which was very rare for video games back then. It's just such a joy to explore the planet, go to villages, your palace, the Fremen sieges, talk to people, and see how your actions change the environment, either by seeing your harvesters at work or how you slowly change the planet's landscape with your botany teams as vegetation begins to spread throughout the planet. My only real gripe with the game is that it's pretty shallow. It needs more available jobs for your soldiers, more weapon types, more harvesting gear, just more. Not only that, but once you figure out the AI's quirks, defeating the Harkonnen and conquering the planet becomes a cakewalk. Still, there's nothing quite like the original Dune out there. So many of your decisions are made not by menus, which yes, they still exist, but instead are made through conversation, making everything feel much more natural. I mean, heck! This is one of the first games that I ever played that had a love scene that was not played for laughs. And really, I've just never played any game that did such a unique and interesting job at mixing point and click, real-time grand strategy, and French touch. Yes, that's a real thing, look it up. Now, Dune would be ported to the Amiga and Sega CD, and even receive an updated MS-DOS release which came in a CD. But to me, the original floppy disk MS-DOS version is still the best way to play this. The CD versions add voice acting, which, while not great, the way the lines are delivered actually do a really good job at fitting in with the game's dreamlike atmosphere. But on the other hand, the CD versions also replace a lot of the beautiful pixel art with early CG backgrounds, and they just don't look as good if you ask me. Additionally, the Sega CD and Amiga versions will also greatly change the art style, to the point where some characters look more alien than human. But in the end, no matter which version you play, Dune is still incredible. Last year I made a video where I called the original Dune a forgotten masterpiece, and I still stand by those words. I've been waiting nearly 30 years for a game just like it, and nothing has come up yet. The funny thing is, at the end of the game, you get a tease for Dune 2, but the sequel would be very different. Dune 2 would change everything. Released a few months after the first game, Dune 2 is a completely different game handled by a different team, as this time the game would be created by Westwood Studios, the same developer behind the popular Command & Conquer series. And this is where it all began. Dune 2 changed the face of PC gaming as we know it forever, and that's because this is the first real-time strategy game as we know them today. There have been RTS games before, like Herzog's Wife for the Mega Drive, which was the main inspiration for this game, and there was also Stonkers for the ZX Spectrum before that. But Dune 2 is the one that created the formula as we know it today. Base building, resource collecting, unit training, upgrading buildings, different factions to play as, it's all here. Deviating completely from the books and movie, Dune 2 creates a parallel storyline in which the Emperor issues a challenge to the strongest houses.
The house that produces the most spice will control Dune. There are no set territories and no rules of engagement.
And from here, you can pick the Atreides, the Harkonnen, or the newcomer House Ordos. Despite having 3 different factions to choose from, the truth is, there's very little that separates them. Their armies are almost exactly the same, except for a few minor differences and a special power and special unit that are only unlocked towards the end of the game. Other than that, there's a few minor differences here and there, but nothing too noticeable. For example, the Harkonnen can't build attack ornithopters, while the Atreides cannot train long-range infantry. Once you reach Mission 3, buildings will begin to degrade over time, forcing you to repair them often, a feature which was thankfully abandoned in future Dune games, though I'm pretty sure the Harkonnen buildings degrade faster. Now, being the first modern RTS, this game is missing a few key features which might take some getting used to. For one thing, there are no context-sensitive controls. If you want to give anyone an order, you select that unit, then move to the menu on the side, choose between move, attack or harvest, and then click on where you want them to perform that action. Additionally, you cannot select multiple units. So if you want to send a group anywhere, you need to select a unit, click either move or attack from the side menu, click on the correct location on the map, and then rinse and repeat for every other unit. As you can imagine, this will greatly slow down the game's pacing. You also have no groups, rally points, or waypoints. This is as old school as it gets. Thankfully, there are several Dune 2 fan projects and remasters out there, which add some quality of life improvements, with Dune Legacy probably being the most famous one out there. Still, there are a slew of issues with the original game beyond this. For one thing, the power creep ensures that as you unlock new units, you'll never need to use your old ones again. So this means that once you unlock the quad, you'll never need the trikes again, And once you unlock the tank, you'll never use the quads. And once you get the siege tank, you'll never use the regular tank again. And so on and so forth. The only exception are the missile launchers, which are useful due to their long range, but will not replace whatever main body of attack you're using. Additionally, even though there are so few differences between each faction, they are not properly balanced. The Ordos are by far the weakest army, as their saboteurs can easily be stopped, while the Harkonnen are the strongest faction due to their Death Hand missile. A nuclear missile with low accuracy but incredible attack power. A well-aimed missile can take out half of your base. And as far as I know, the only possible defense against the Death Hand missile is safe scumming. So yeah, the power balance is kind of all over the place. Additionally, any unit not on your main screen will move at half speed. So if you want your units to reach a location faster, or if you want your harvester to hurry up, you'll have to focus your camera on them. Still, you gotta love the game's attention to detail, like the overly elaborate building menus. You just don't see this sort of thing anymore. The AI is also not particularly challenging, as they'll just send an assortment of units at you in a straight line, never bothering to change their tactics. And in fact, if you place a unit at the corner of an enemy building, you can actually trick the AI to attack its own buildings. Despite that, Dune 2 is a pretty difficult game, and I'm pretty sure it's because your enemies receive regular lump sums of credits. So while they might slow down if you take out their resource collectors, they will still build units even when they should not have any money left. Now, despite these issues, Dune 2 is still a very fun game to play, and without it, we would not have the RTS genre as we know it, or any genre spin-offs like MOBAs. Without the book, there would be no movie, and without the movie, there would be no Dune 2. Without Dune 2, there would be no Starcraft, Homeworld, Command & Conquer, and Warcraft. And without Warcraft, there would be no Dota. And without Dota, there would be no League of Legends. So, how's that for a domino effect? Back in the early 90s, there was a popular mod for Dune 2 called Super Dune 2. Websites back then would state that this was a cancelled sequel for the game. But it is in fact just a fan-made mod. Basically, it adds 3 new factions and, in my opinion, more interesting missions. Check it out if you're curious. Dune 2 would also receive a port for the Amiga, which is pretty much the same as the PC version, albeit with less colors and no music during gameplay. A good port, but I would stick with the original. The more interesting port, however, would be for the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive. Yes, Herzog's Zwei, a Mega Drive game, was the inspiration for Dune 2, and now it comes full circle, with a port to that very same console in 1993. And you might be surprised to hear that it's better than you might expect. Being a straight port, there are no new levels or content. And in fact, if anything, it would actually remove content from the PC version. But we'll get to that. With that said though, this version makes a sorely needed quality of life improvement. Namely, it introduced context-sensitive controls. Yes, you can now select a unit, click anywhere on the map, and the unit will automatically know what to do, just like in modern RTS games. Sadly, you still can't select multiple units, so you're back to having to pick each one individually and give them orders. You might also notice the color reduction and simplified art style. Simply put, while arguably more functional, the Mega Drive version is a much uglier game than its PC original. But on the other hand, the music got a massive improvement. Dune 2 for the PC already had a stellar soundtrack, which was ported and given a techno makeover for the Sega Genesis. So it really comes down to whether or not you prefer a more subdued and immersive soundtrack like the PC version, or a more techno and action-oriented interpretation of that same soundtrack on Sega. Though sadly, I'm pretty sure a few songs were left on the cutting room floor on the Sega version. Another major removal were the cutscenes. Both the Amiga and PC versions have some pretty high-quality pixel art cutscenes, but these were all removed for the console version, including the ending. So an interesting cutscene like this becomes this on Sega. And even the pixel art you do get has been massively simplified. I mean, look at the dithering on the Ornithopter Advisor when compared to the PC version. The PC version also lets you pick which map you want to tackle, something which was removed on Sega. Finally, and more importantly, the unit cap was also massively reduced, and you no longer fight multiple armies. On the final mission of the PC version, you have to contend with 3 different armies, whereas on Sega, you only fight one army with multiple bases. So yeah, the game was scaled down quite a bit to fit with the system's limitations, and even then, you might still run into the occasional sprite flicker. And for better or worse, the enemy AI remains the same, right down to the whole infinite money cheat. But if anything, I did find that now it's even easier to trick it into shooting its own buildings. Still, while this is a scaled down port, it's way more functional than you might think, and it's a worthwhile addition to your Sega Genesis collection. With the success of Dune 2, Westwood Studios would begin working on its own series, Command & Conquer, but it would not be long until a ruckus called yet again. This time with Dune 2000. Even though this game was published by Westwood, it was actually created by Intelligent Games, and Dune 2000 is a full-on remake of Dune 2.
The house which produces the most spice controls Dune. There are no set territories, no rules of engagement.
Honestly, I remember a fair bit of hype for this one when it was announced, and that very same hype dying down almost immediately. And the reason for that is that the game is just not that great, honestly. I mean, it's not bad or anything. It updates the formula with features that you would now expect from more modern RTS games, such as context-sensitive controls, group selection, group formation, that sort of thing. And it even introduces Command & Conquer style live-action briefings. But the game is just not that interesting, and the reason for that is that the armies barely changed. Yes, you have 3 armies, but they're still 80% similar, with only a handful of differences between them. I mean, by 1998, we already had games like Command & Conquer Red Alert, Warcraft 2, Starcraft, among others. So this Dune 2000 kind of just felt like a step back. Gameplay-wise, there was really nothing to differentiate it from the dozens of real-time strategy games that had surfaced in the meantime. I mean, sure, the missions are a bit more interesting now, like protecting locations or helping smugglers, but they're still not as involved as assignments from other games, from Blizzard or even Westwood Studios, with the 3 factions basically being clones of one another. It all just felt kind of repetitive. But still, it did have some improvements. The power creep of Dune 2 is gone, as now every unit serves its own function. The soundtrack pays homage to the original game, but has been massively improved. And finally, House Ordos was given a major personality makeover. Although the Ordos technically exists in the books, they are a creation from the game developers. In Dune 2, they were basically a merchant cartel, whereas in Dune 2000, they became much more sinister. Despite that though, the briefing cutscenes are kind of boring, as most of them are nothing more than a single actor talking to the camera. It's cool that they got John Rhys Davies to play as the Atreides Mentat, And the man is clearly trying his best, but it's also obvious that he didn't have a lot to work with.
Let me remind you, we are here to fight for the Duke. For the Duke! We will mine spice in the Imperial Basin, and for the Duke, we will rid this land of Harkonnen. Keep that in mind, and you'll be Dune men yet.
Though it is cool how they try to reproduce the visuals of the movie, right down to even using stock footage from said movie on occasion. But there's actually a reason why Dune 2000 looks so much like the movie, and that's because every game we've talked about so far has been based on a license to make games based on the movie, not the book. Which is cool, but it's gonna come back to bite us. Now, the cool thing about Dune 2000 is that there's a fan-made port of this game which runs perfectly fine on modern systems, which is how I'm playing this. So yeah, while I'm not a big fan of this one, it is at least easy to get a hold of. But for all the issues that I may have with the PC version of Dune 2000, I assure you, it's leagues ahead of the PlayStation port. I own this game, I bought it back in the day, and let me tell you, it's absolutely awful. For one thing, the smoothness of the controls from the Sega version are gone. Here, they feel laggy, choppy, and imprecise. I often end up clicking on the wrong enemy or spot on the ground. Additionally, trying to select multiple units becomes chaotic. You might also notice that this game is using a different engine, as all buildings and vehicles are now polygons, which sadly makes the vehicles move very slowly, as well as giving them pathfinding issues, as they will often move up against one another and don't know how to react. It also makes it much more difficult to set up your base, as you're never really quite sure of how much space each building takes, or if your units can walk through the tighter areas of said base. There's just so many niggling issues with it. Look, there's a reason why real-time strategy games have such a bad reputation on consoles, and Dune 2000 is one of those reasons. With Dune 2000 being created by a different studio and the continuous success of the Command & Conquer franchise, you would think that Westwood Studios had given up on Dune, but thankfully, the best was yet to come. Emperor Battle for Dune was the last Dune real-time strategy game ever made, but it's arguably the best one. It is, at the very least, the most complete one. The engine has now moved to a fully polygonal one, and several enhancements were added to keep it more in line with more modern RTS titles. And I would love to review this game for you, but there's a problem. I can't get this game to run. I own it, I've tried fan-made patches, but nothing works. So we're gonna use my memories and YouTube footage. It's the best I can do. Taking place after the events of Dune 2000, this is the first Dune game in which every faction has a completely different army setup. There's zero overlap here. Every army has different strengths and weaknesses, and every unit serves a purpose. You even have different vehicle movement types, like the slow, bulky Harkonnen tanks, which carry a punch, or the fast and maneuverable Ordos laser tanks, which are weaker but faster and have rechargeable shields. Not only that, but if a unit with a laser gun shoots at another unit with a shield, they both die, which was taken from the books. Units will also level up as they kill enemies, making them stronger. Oh, and remember the map selection from Dune 2 and Dune 2000? Well, it was expanded here. Now, each faction controls a third of the map, and when invading a region, said region will receive reinforcements based on how many adjacent areas you and your opponents control. So for example, if you attack a region and have 3 areas to back you up, while the enemy only has 1 area, you'll receive reinforcements at triple the rate they do. Additionally, your enemies can now attack your regions as well, though the base buildings you've previously constructed will stay up for these offense missions. The gameplay also received an overhaul. turning it into a straight rock paper scissors affair. I know that some real-time strategy fans do not like this system, but I remember it working well here as it kept the pacing fast and frantic. Another cool thing is that you now have 4 additional smaller factions that you can either ally with or declare war against. Basically, you'll often come across secondary objectives, and if you follow them, you'll please a faction. With that said though, these objectives often have a choice where you either help one minor faction or the other. Allying with one of them will unlock their units, and in the future, they might occasionally join for a battle with you. You even get cool extra missions in space stations, your own planet, and can even invade your opponent's planets. Heck, with the Harkonnen, you can even take place in a civil war and choose which side you want to fight for. There's honestly a lot to like here. Even the cutscenes were massively improved as they now feature several actors working off each other, and the production values were upped to the level of something like the Sci-Fi channel. Just trust me, if you like hammy acting and campy dialogue, then this is the game for you.
You dare to use the voice! You dare to enter my mind unbidden!
You are not what you seem, Reverend Mother. What horror are you planning?
This interview is over. You will obey us, sister, or you will die. God! I can only die once. There are deaths, and there are deaths. You will obey us.
Honestly, even if you're not gonna play the game, I would recommend that you at least check out the cinematics on YouTube.
I am to remain here on KD Prime, draining the Baron's pustules, wiping the spittle from his innumerable chins.
Study your charm film book, brother.
You insolent... I shall be Baron soon, perhaps even Emperor. Then you'll pay for your disrespect, baby brother.
Abject terror consumes me.
Do be careful on Arrakis. A knife in the back can come from any hand, perhaps even a trusted one.
I know I'm going off my memory for this one, but for me, Dune 1 is my favorite Dune game. Dune 2 is the most important Dune game, but Emperor Battle for Dune is arguably the best Dune game, at least from an RTS standpoint. Sadly though, this would be the final Westwood Dune game, and the rights have since reverted back to the Frank Herbert estate, which is the reason why none of the games we've talked about so far can be found on Steam, GOG, or any other source. Simply put, if you want to play these games, you either pirate them or order them off eBay, and that's assuming you can get them to run, which, in the case of Emperor, I couldn't. Honestly, I don't get this. Dune is such an important franchise for PC gaming, and the Frank Herbert estate either does not know or doesn't care. It's just frustrating. With Westwood no longer at the helm of Dune, Cryo Interactive, the developers of the original Dune 1, were once again given the rights to the franchise. And at the time, I thought this was good news, especially when they announced that they would be working on not 1, not 2, but 3 games based on Dune. The first is Frank Herbert's Dune. Launched in 2001 for the PC and PlayStation 2, this game attempts to follow the events of the book more closely, and is based on the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries of the same name, focusing on the period when Paul joins the Fremen and begins guerrilla warfare against the Harkonnen. Sadly though, this game is beyond awful. Yeah, the graphics aren't great, but it's an early PS2 game, so that can be forgiven. But the controls are incredibly stiff and confusing. It seems that the game was aiming for a stealth gameplay approach. You even have a Metal Gear Solid-like wall-hugging mechanic. But trust me, this is not Metal Gear Solid. Your attacks and movement are stiff, so if you get noticed, you're going to be hit several times before you take down a single enemy. Instead, you need to approach them unnoticed and perform a takedown, which would be fine if it didn't get so repetitive so quickly. The game tries to get around this by adding exploration scenes and puzzles, but if you're like me, you're just gonna be confused all the time. For example, there's this area where you need to run away from the sandworm by always walking on the shallow areas. But the camera is panned in a way that I can't see where I'm going. And the only time I know where I'm supposed to go is when the worm kills me, because then the camera finally zooms out. I also never know where I have to go, which buttons I have to press, or what I need to do. This game is just so confusing, not to mention glitchy. There's times where characters are supposed to talk and they just don't, or sometimes they automatically skip dialogues. There's graphical glitches, and you gotta love the talking head animations for some of these characters. The dialogue is also stiff and weird, like it was translated directly from French and nobody bothered to make it seem more natural to English speakers.
Are you in possession of your crease and the thumper?
Not yet.
What do you expect? You while away your time giving rings to women.
One character doesn't even know how to pronounce the name of the planet.
Location. We are on Arrakis.
The planet is Arrakis.
The planet Arrakis.
The planet Arrakis. We're on the planet Arrakis.
We are on Arrakis. We are on Arrakis. We are on Arrakis. We are on Arrakis. We are on Arrakis.
The planet is Arrakis.
Just avoid this one if you can. Don't buy it, don't play it, don't even look at it. Now, out of all three Cryo Interactive Dune games, the PS2 title is the only one that actually launched, but the other two still make for some pretty interesting conversation pieces. First we have Dune Generations, a massive multiplayer real-time strategy game that would have been unlike anything at the time or even today. Basically, it would be part Command & Conquer, part Homeworld, and part Europa Universalis. Players would create their own house and choose from one of three possible faction types: military, commercial, or mercenary, depending on whether or not you wanted to focus more on the sim aspects of the game, the combat aspects, or a middle-of-the-road option. From there on, you would colonize or conquer planets, build bases, create fleets, manage your empire's economy and political power through treaties, marriages, and lineages. Back in the day, I remember reading the official website religiously, eagerly awaiting for a public beta. And the fact that battles could be fought on the ground, in space, or avoided entirely through political and economical maneuvering sounded like a dream come true for me. But sadly, there's very little information left on this game. You have the official website on the Wayback Machine, a couple of low-resolution promotional videos, and that's it really. To say that this game was ambitious is an understatement. Even now, 20 years later, this would still be an ambitious title. Fittingly enough, the other cancelled Cryo Interactive Dune game is also ambitious, but this time it's for the Game Boy Advance. Dune Ornithopter Assault was meant to be a 3D combat flight game, which looked pretty impressive and ran smoothly considering the hardware. You would take the role of an ornithopter pilot and would be given missions to protect harvesters, take down enemies, that sort of thing. On your downtime, you can visit the water bar or see the accolades you would receive during your campaign. Unfortunately, controlling your ornithopter is pretty finicky. Taking down ground enemies is easy enough, but lining up your shot with aerial foes is nearly impossible. I was able to do it when I had missiles, but your Orni type and weapon loadout is decided for you. So by the time I reached the third mission and had to take down flying enemies with just a main gun, I kept getting shot down or running out of fuel because I could not line up my shots correctly. I can't help but feel like this could have been easily corrected with auto-aim or something to that effect. But then again, this is an unfinished prototype, so it's not really fair to judge it as it is. And that's pretty much it. As far as I know, there are no other official Dune games. There have been a few mods here and there, but if you want to play an official Dune title, for now, these are all of our choices. We do know that Funcom is working on a new Dune game, but looking at our game development history, it seems likely that this will be an MMO of some kind, and that, according to the developers, it will be a more robust version of Conan Exiles. though that's about as far as we know. Although it doesn't carry the same weight it used to, the Dune franchise was massively important to PC gaming. And it's a shame that all these legacy games have either been forgotten or ignored by the Frank Herbert estate. So we can only hope that the upcoming movie will renew some of these licenses. But if nothing else, I'll be playing Dune 1 and 2 for a long time to come. Hey everyone, thank you for watching Sticket's Retro Corner. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell and share this video. All that fun social media stuff. And you can also support me on Patreon. It may not seem like it, but even $1 is a really big help in keeping this channel going. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. Bye!
The planet is Arrakis.